I'd like to welcome everybody to our lucky 13th episode of Eat, Learn, and Grow with Tinhorn. We are happy to have you here as we're celebrating our fathers a little bit early before we actually celebrate over the weekend. So just wanted to share that during these times of metamorphosis that we remain committed to the betterment of our tribal communities, and Tinhorn is beyond grateful to the continued support of our team, our clients, and the community. And we are driven to ignite Indigenous connections and are pursuing this vision in new ways, such as creating space for us to connect through our Eat, Learn, and Grow with Tinhorn series, which has been occurring on Fridays, noon to 1 p.m. And really it's to allow us to humanly connect as we safely physically distance. We're all human beings. We all need each other. So we thank you for migrating to our space and really making it a part of your space where we gather and share tips and also come up with new ways to grow during this time of change. For the past 9 years, Tinhorn has provided connecting, training, and marketing services to Indian country and those who are working with our tribal communities. Collectively, we are spending more time online. And when was the last time you looked at your online presence, your website? Tinhorn is offering our Eat, Learn, and Grow participants today a complimentary 15-minute consultation that may be booked at tinhorn-consulting.com. Gamu, hello, my name is April Tinhorn, and I'm Molokai Navajo in Chinese. I own Tinhorn, and I'm your host today on our episode of Redefining the Journey of Indigenous Fatherhood. So I read this quote from parent.com, and it's talking about parenthood, and it talked about fatherhood. So fatherhood is a vocation of sacrificial leadership, one designed not for the satisfaction and pleasure of the man in that role, but for the benefit, protection, and well-being of the children in his care. Dads are to give themselves to their family, to serve rather than be served. And I thought that was an interesting take to frame our discussion on fatherhood today. So I'm glad you all decided to join us for this open discussion. And we have guest panelists, Dr. Anthony Newkirk and Dr. Colin Ben joining us today. And each one of them, I know them professionally, a little bit personally, but definitely not in their roles as being father figures. And I'm looking forward to it, just like you, to hear about their journey of trials and triumphs, both in their personal journey as they created family, and also as they have pursued their academic and professional endeavors. So with that, I'm going to start with Dr. Ben, and he is a citizen of the Navajo Nation from Shiprock, New Mexico. He earned his PhD in Educational Leadership and Policy in 2018 from the University of Utah. Colin is a postdoctoral research associate with a co-appointment in the School of Social Transformation in the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering at Arizona State University. Hey, that's my college and university, Colin. Previously, Colin was the Assistant Dean for the Diversity in the Graduate School at University of Utah. Dr. Ben's 13 years of experience in higher education as a qualitative scholar, administrator, and educator has influenced his research on the intersection of access, social justice, equity, and the persistence for Indigenous first-generation, low-income, and historically underrepresented students in higher education, which has so much real application in the times that we are living in right now. So with that, I would like to turn over the Zoom screen to you, Dr. Ben.
Thank you for that, April. I really appreciate the opportunity to present with you and speak with you all.
Thank you for being here.
So give me 1 second to share my screen.
Of course.
So I like to begin my presentation by introducing myself in my Navajo language. I think it's culturally appropriate for me to begin that way, as I was taught by my parents and grandparents. So I'll go ahead and start with that. Yata shike do shidene she tabahan neshle do tachini bashichin torachini dashiche aro ashihi dashanele kutao dene neshle Colin Ben dashijine tebata de nasha kare hosdote shagan bil ina ash iniki otakuye Conroy Ben Wilye shaalchine naki wayuita Ben aro dinea Ben Wilye akut ego dine hastin neshle. So I'd like to translate what I said into English for those of you who may not understand Navajo. I said that I am of the Water's Edge clan, born for the red running into the water people. My maternal grandfather is of the Bitterwater clan, and my paternal grandfather is of the Salt people clan. And I explained that I'm originally from Shiprock, New Mexico, which is the image that you see on your screen there. And also I now live in Tempe, Arizona, and that my wife is Dr. Otakuye Conroy Ben, and that we have two girls, Wayuwita and Dinea Ben. And that's how I identify as a Navajo man. So I'd like to begin my talk and ground my understanding of fatherhood based on my parents. I was raised by a single mother. My mother is Gladys Torricini. What I really am thankful for is that they instilled a lot of values into me and during my formative years. And what I really appreciate of what she has taught me is that it's really important to be spiritually grounded. You know, our spirituality really gets us through a lot of difficult situations. So I'm glad that my mother enforced the spirituality within my life. And also the fact that when we interact with others, we should do that in a respectful and appropriate way. And that our children, whether that's our own biological children or a larger extended family who are younger, who we view them as our children, they really are the heart of the family. They are really the life being. They really continue our legacy within the family. And then I also want to acknowledge my father, Wallace Ben. Although my parents were divorced when I was growing up, my dad did come visit us from time to time. And it was during those conversations that I had with him that he really reinforced my Navajo cultural identity and really wanted to make sure that that I understood that I was created and Navajo people were created by the holy people within our creation stories and origin stories. So he shared all of that with me and took me to some ceremonies. So I'm glad that my father has played that role, and that not only is it important for us to be grounded within our culture and philosophy, but also to really cherish our life here, and that we really have a short period of time to live and walk on Mother Earth. So that it's really important that we cherish the time that we have in our interactions with others. And then also he really valued the importance of praying. You know, he would call me in the morning just as the sun was rising to pray with me. If it wasn't in person, we would do that over the phone. So I'm glad that these are the values that my parents have shared with me. And it's something that I hold dear to, that's kind of influences what I do and how I do the work that I do within American Indian education. My father did pass away 2 years ago, so I wanted to acknowledge that. You know, I still carry on those teachings, although he's not with us today. So I want to move on to my family. I think those values that my parents shared with me is something that I want to instill into my family. You know, I want to begin by acknowledging my beautiful wife, Dr. Otakuye Conroy Ben, who's a citizen of the Oglala Sioux tribe. So this photo is a really good photo that illustrates how we value our Navajo and Lakota cultures. And that, you know, we have two beautiful girls. Without my wife, we wouldn't have these two girls, Wayuwita and Dinea, who are sitting right in front of us. I think they really will carry on the legacy of our families. But prior to starting our family, which, you know, we started in our 30s, I really had a close connection with all of my nephews and nieces, and we had a pretty large family. So we had, like, you know, I had 14 nephews and nieces, so that I really, really loved and adore and cherished. And I still, you know, FaceTime them and talk to them on a daily basis. So, that's kind of my immediate family that I really wanted to highlight today. But moving on, focusing more on, going back to the Indigenous values that my parents instilled, these are the values that I want to continue with our two girls. That's really focusing on our Navajo and you're really identifying that and sharing with YU and Danae that they come from strong families that have strong roots within our Navajo culture and also our Lakota, their Lakota culture as well. So we really come from this rich, vibrant families that are really involved in our communities. And and it's important for them to acknowledge that they do come from two different sovereign nations of the Navajo Nation and the Oglala Sioux tribe. So when I talk with my girls, we created this family chart. So we're making sure that they're aware of, their parents, but also their grandparents on both their mother and father sides, and then also their great grandparents, and having them understand that these are their direct descendants of these great leaders within our tribal nations. And also the fact that, I want to make sure that our girls grow up, that they should be kind to their friends, be kind to their people that they may not know, be kind to their teachers. That's a value that both my wife and I really try to instill into our girls. And also the fact that learning, is a lifelong journey, but also that learning can be a lot of fun. So I really make sure that I take the time to teach my girls, whether it's our language or our family genealogy or the communities that we come from, or even just the fact that, teaching them colors when they're really young. Like Danae is 4 years old right now. I'm helping her learn her colors and her numbers, and also learning that in Navajo as well. And then also the fact that we want to make sure that they really understand that they both are loved. Not only do we verbally tell them in English and also within our Indigenous languages, I would say ayo ninshne she'owe, but to verbalize that and also to enact that, to hug them, to carry them, to play with them, so that they know that we're here with them and for them. And then also I want to make sure that as they're growing older, that they do continue to value and have this spiritual foundation. So that way, when they do come into difficult situations and times, that they have that cultural strength to rely on to get through these difficult times. And this is a photo of them in their fancy shawl dresses. So we want to make sure that we have them wear their Lakota outfits and also their Navajo traditional attire as well. So here's and just to reinforce their Navajo and Lakota identity, I think it's really important for us to be cognizant of the fact that we are raising our daughters in an urban city here in Tempe and Phoenix, Arizona, and we're not within our tribal nations in Shiprock or in Rapid City or within Pine Ridge. So we have to make these intentional efforts to really reinforce their Navajo and Lakota identity. And we do that by making sure that we create opportunities for them to speak their languages. So for example, I've been co-teaching this Navajo children's language class. So we have about 8 Navajo families all over, on and off the nation, who are coming together on Zoom, learning how to pronounce words, numbers, body parts, colors, simple sentences. So we're reinforcing that language revitalization within our youth. And also we're doing the same thing on a more informal level with our Lakota. They're sharing Lakota with them, so that way they learn Lakota words as well. But in addition to that, I have them participate in other structured events like the Phoenix Indian Center. They have this children's youth choir that are singing group class that they participate in. So I try to make sure I create opportunities for them to learn in larger settings as well, like thankfully through the Phoenix Indian Center. But in addition to speaking it, I think it's important to also engage in native dances. So, as you can see in this photo, we're dressed in our traditional attire, and I've always made it a point that I take my girls to the Navajo social song and dance at the Navajo fairs when we go back home for that, and that we dance, and because that really ties to our culture. But also in a more contemporary aspect, here in Phoenix, we've given the opportunity to introduce them to hoop dancing through our friends, and also through a larger ballet organization where they're fusing ballet and native hoop dancing together. So this really gives them a chance to dance and also share language and storytelling. Every night before we put our kids to bed, I always make it a point to share a story with them. They're now at the point where they want to hear a story. So before they go to bed, they'll ask, "Dad, tell me a story." So I tell them stories about what it was like for me growing up on Navajo Nation in Shiprock, what it was like going to college, what it was like meeting their mother for the first time, what it was like being on Pine Ridge. So I make sure that they're hearing stories of our families. And then also something that I really try to reinforce with my wife is that we schedule play dates with other Native families, so that way my kids play with other Native kids that are their age. Because the reality is that when they're in their schools here in Tempe, there may be only one other Native student in their class, and then maybe a handful, maybe 4 or 5 within the whole elementary school. So we want to create opportunities for them to engage and play with other Native kids on an informal level. And then also utilizing FaceTime, social media and technology to FaceTime with their grandparents, both in Shiprock and in Rapid City. So that way they get a sense of, they know who their grandparents are. They're having this constant dialogue with them, and that's why it strengthens their bond with their larger extended family. And then just to reinforce that in person, we make sure that every holiday, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter, we try to alternate visiting our Navajo and Lakota families. So that way our daughters get to play with their cousins, they get to play with their uncles and aunts, and so they get to know who their family are. So we think that's really important for us to reinforce their Navajo and Lakota identities. But kind of moving on and switching gears to how do I, as a father, balance the work and my family responsibilities? So, as April mentioned, I'm a postdoc here at Arizona State University, and I've been fortunate to work in the Center for American Indian Education. That really gives me an opportunity to delve into research focusing on American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, and other indigenous populations, looking at education experiences as they navigate higher education as undergrad and graduate students. So it allows me to engage in research. I'm now teaching courses on American Indian education. And then also I'm glad that I have opportunities to develop projects that help provide successful experiences for our Native students in higher ed. But also I have to, I love the work that I do. I've been working in the field of higher ed for over 13 years. But I have to make sure that when I leave work, I want to make sure that I'm cognizant that I need to stop working and focus on the family when I come home. So I want to make sure that I'm giving my children that time and focus and attention to really listen to them and hear what their day was like, what their thoughts are, what they would like to do, to really engage with them and play with them, sit down with them and play. So that's something that I really want to make sure that I'm always cognizant of, that I need to focus on the kids. So this slide really illustrates how I'm actually doing that. The image it shows YU and I cutting out Navajo hogans, and within the hogan we're putting our clans on there. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here we have little cutouts with hogans and their Navajo and Lakota clans on there. So that way it reinforces, again, language and their identity. But more informally, like Easter, there's another photograph of me working with Danae and helping her dye her egg. So, I want to make sure that I'm engaging with them, playing with them, dressing up, as costumes, for their birthdays or Halloween, and then also, hoop dancing with them. So I want to make sure that I'm really engaging with our kids. And then lastly, um, uh, as we're navigating this COVID-19 space, parenting in this context is extremely difficult. We are taking social distancing to the extreme, where we're staying home. And as a result, our daughters are really missing playing with their friends and their teachers, and just that structured classroom environment and being exposed to a lot of activities. So that's an area that we realize that our girls are missing that. And so now we have to be intentional to really work with them to teach them their ensure that they're reading, they're writing, they're learning their math and other cultural activities. So we want to make sure that we be creative in that by using Zoom, and then also letting them have fun with their friends in Facebook Messenger. So they're just socializing with their kids. So with that, I'd like to just thank you for listening to me share some of my thoughts and ideas of how I'm navigating this journey as being an Indigenous father in a urban setting. So thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey of fatherhood with us, Colin. Those pictures and videos, they warm my heart. So we're gonna segue now to our next presenter, and as we know, there's no one size fits all in being a father figure, and we're gonna be sharing. Anthony's gonna be sharing his journey with us as well, and showing us a different experience with fatherhood. So Anthony Newkirk, he is the son of Edith Cole of the Gila River Indian Community and Bill Newkirk. He's African American of Chicago, Illinois, originally from Goldsboro, North Carolina. Anthony is the founder and CEO of Mobile Nations Technologies, an app development firm, and Warriors Code, a nonprofit to promote technology to Indigenous and Black youth, homeless veterans, LGBTQ community, and others underrepresented in the IT career field. He also serves as the chairman for the Gila River Urban Members Association. Anthony honorably served 10 years in the U.S. Air Force as an ammunition specialist from 1989 to 2000. He was convicted and incarcerated for 3 years in prison from 2005 to 2008 for DUIs, which he describes as life-saving and a timeout from our Creator. Upon release and a few stern words from Aunt Mary Thomas, he achieved a bachelor's degree in information technology from Ottawa University in 2009, an MBA from Keller graduate in 2010, and a PhD in information technology from Capella University in 2019. He is an enrolled member of the Gila River Indian Community, an Accomaw tribal member, Thalna and Hopi lineage as well, that was born in Chicago, Illinois, and he now resides in Phoenix, Arizona. So, Anthony, I'm going to hand the Zoom screen over to, I believe, both you and Lisa at this time, and look forward to hearing the way you're redefining the journey of Indigenous fatherhood.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, April. And, I consider it an honor when you asked me to come aboard, and still trying to figure out why. But I first want to say, Colin, I really admire your story, and thank you for sharing, and really admire what you had to say. So, Lisa, am I doing the PowerPoint? Do you have my version too? Oh, that's wrong. Did you get my other one?
Give me a second, sorry.
I have it up, I can share mine.
Okay. Oh,
okay. Let me minimize the talking heads. Good morning. My name is Anthony Newkirk. Happy Juneteenth. I'm also not only Native American, African American, and I just want to make sure that I also acknowledge that, you know, today is Juneteenth, which is the celebration of the ending of slavery. So just want to, you know, make sure I acknowledge that. Let's see. So before I get to fatherhood, I just want to share a little bit of timeline about myself. I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and had a little bit of, you know, trauma during my early childhood. But, you know, that's some things that we all go through in life, and it is what it is. But I had my father in my life, and my father's one who actually, and it's kind of unique that he was a single father and raised me until my high school years, where I was a little bit too much to handle at that point in time. And so I moved out here to Arizona in my high school years to stay with my mother, who was living out here in Phoenix with my sister. Barely graduated high school and went straight into my mother actually had to sign me into the Air Force. I had to get permission from my mother to join the Air Force at 17 years old. Yeah, so I traveled around the world in the Air Force, which I was so thankful for. It gave me structure, gave me discipline, which to this day I, you know, value that so much. And I was ammunition specialist stationed in Korea, Germany, Guam, Japan, the Middle East. So I did the whole world, and so thankful for that. However, most people will know that once you get into the military, you often don't come out the other end in the same way you went in. And I had some issues with alcohol and PTSD that I didn't handle so well. And so I got a few DUIs along the way and end up having to serve 3 years in prison. And thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for that. It's like April mentioned, it was a time out for me to reflect. And I had some choices to make, you know. So actually, my culture wasn't really shared with me through my mother at that, you know, growing up, and that's just, you know, how it was. And so when I went to prison, I had a choice to make. I could, you know, in prison you have to choose a race, basically. You know, who you eat with, who you associate with, and initially they put me in the black population. So you had to bunk with blacks, you had to eat with blacks. You couldn't share, you know, a table with any other race. You could, you know, interact, of course, but I chose to run with indigenous people while I was in prison because I wanted to learn more about the culture. I figured I'm going to be sober. I'm going to be able to, you know, learn different aspects of indigenous life that I haven't experienced. Now, I've always been connected to my family that it's on the res. You know, in the summers, I'd go to the res and stay with my grandmother, my aunt, my uncles. So I was resi, but not resi, if you get what I'm saying. You know, I was always connected to the land and the people, just not living it day to day. That being said, while I was in prison, I got to learn some words, some culture. It was like a blessing to me, and so I got more involved. My aunt, which is the late Mary Thomas, is the only female governor of our tribe, and she was really an inspiration to me. And so while in prison, you know, gave me a lot of time to think, read books, just really prepare myself for when I was getting out. And so with her words and her encouragement, along with other people in my family, I got back on my educational journey. And that led to, you know, getting a PhD. I mean, it was just one of those things where I never thought of myself as an academic, but the more I tried, it just increased. It's just like, okay, as long as I try, then I can say at least I tried. And then I kept succeeding, which kind of surprised me. I got this degree, then I got that degree, and then I got this award and that award. And, I thought, okay, the tribe was good enough to supply funding along with my GI Bill that, I said, okay, let me take a couple classes towards my PhD, fail, and then I can say at least I tried. I actually passed the course, passing. Actually failed my first try at my comprehensive exams, thought that was going to be it. Did my second try at my comp exams and passed. Now I got to write a dissertation. That took a number of years and finally completed it, but that's kind of my journey, my story. My father and I have a difficult relationship. It's better now. There was about a 10-year period that we didn't talk. And so fatherhood is very important to me. Although I'm not biologically a father. If you can jump to the next slide.
I think you're driving. Yeah.
Me.
Wake up, you're at the wheel. Hey.
So in this slide, you can see on the left-hand side, that's my sister and her kids and her grandson. And on my significant other has daughters, and these are my G unit. These are my grandkids and nephews and niece, and those are the ones that I try to inspire by my actions, and always try to be there as much as I can. When they have troubles or need advice or things like that, a lot of times they come to me. When they need something, and that's okay. But I tried to, provide as much advice and life lessons. And, initially I messed up and, didn't provide the greatest example, but I try to better myself every day for them. And so prior to prison, I was a more inward facing person. I wanted to do stuff for myself. When I get out, it's more about community, my family, setting an example, just not about me. It's about accepting, setting that example. And I think that's kind of what's tied into fatherhood, is that you don't have to be biologically anybody's father, but people are watching you. Kids are watching you. They're watching what you do. They're watching how you treat other people. They're watching, everything. I mean, one of my grandsons, I'll say something one weekend, and then 2 months later he'll say, "Pop, what about that? What about this?" And he remembers it. I mean, he'll remember every single thing that we talk about. And it's those teachable moments. If you see in the top right corner, me and him having a little discussion. He's just asking me about stuff, and he's just so tuned in, and they absorb everything. So it's, I got to watch my step and make sure that I'm setting that example. Let's see. And so also with that said, so my Project Warriors Code, I have students, and I have Dene, Apache, O'odham, all different tribes. Bottom right picture is homeless veterans, and we're doing training. And so part of my responsibility, and I say it's my responsibility, is that there are a lot of people that are underrepresented in education and IT and so many different fields. And so I feel it an obligation for me that I was given this second, third chance at life, that this is my passion. This is why I'm here. This is my why, is that to help expose to people that anything is possible. You can be rock bottom and you can bounce up. And so that's kind of where I'm at with Warriors Code. We do stuff by Zoom right now, but we're actually getting ready to open up our classroom in August, the 1st of August, hopefully. But we have the social distancing and everything going on. But even though these guys are adults, we're going to have after school programs. But even though they're adults, they're still like, you know, I have to teach them, give them teachable moments. And some of the folks that are in these photographs are in recovery. And so, you know, I try to instill them, okay, if you're going to take my class, you got to be there at 7 in the morning. And if you're there at 7 in the morning, you're late. So
I've heard that.
class at 6:45. And for a lot of people in recovery, some of those things weren't taught to us as kids, you know, that discipline. Luckily for me, in the military, I had that. But people that, you know, just haven't had that structure, they need that structure. They want that structure. And I keep in touch with them on Facebook. And although we're not in the classroom right now, I see them on Facebook getting up in the morning and posting. And, you know, it does my heart good that, you know, just that little bit that, you know, get up and greet the sun, you know, get up and, you know, say your prayers or, you know, make your bed. You know, that's, you know, something that will help you start your day and get you going. And, no, not everybody's going to be a nerd like me, but, you know, you're going to be able to accomplish some things. You can see here in these pictures where they're tearing apart these computers. And then when they put them back together and that screen comes on, oh my goodness, you see their faces, and that a sense of accomplishment, you know. Some of them never had jobs or had access to a computer before. Now they're tearing them apart. And so I think, you know, a lot of us, even though I have my father in my life, there's some people that didn't. And there's some people that are looking for a father figure, a uncle figure, a brother figure. And to those that had their fathers, God bless you. I call my dad every week. And it's amazing when I get to see him. It's a moving moment. So sorry about that.
No, it's all good. You're so blessed.
So that's my story. Here's my aunt, Mary Thomas, who has been an inspiration for me, and I clicked out of it. All right, that's me.
Oh man, we just totally being open and receptive for the energy and the stories and your experiences that both of you have shared with us in this circle. I would say, just listening to both of I love it because your stories are two totally opposite ends of the spectrum, but there's still commonalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think about something that comes to mind is we do the best we can with what we know. And as we know better, then we must do better. And that's a guiding principle for me. And I think that I heard that in both of your stories as well. And I also heard too that, you know, fatherhood, it's all about not for this, it's a vocation of sacrificial leadership, one designed not for the satisfaction and pleasure of the man in that role, but for the benefit, protection, and well-being of the children in his care. And it's dad serve rather than be served. And both of your stories exemplify those words to me. I know that a lot of our presenters here on Eat, Learn, and Grow is skewed more female-based, and so with our Father's Day, you know, coming up on Sunday, I wanted to definitely give space for Indigenous father figures, because I think, especially in our Native communities, you know, a lot of us have to take on both roles as being the mother and the father. And it did my spirit good to hear both of your stories, and I hope it does everyone else's, because we need we need both mom and dad, or we need at least the love and care of both, or of parents. We just need love and care. I think doesn't matter our age. So I'd like to, oh shoot, we already, I'd like to open it up. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask our panelists, unmute yourself, or you can also use the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen, and Lisa will read your questions.
Hi, this is Bobby. I have a couple quick comments and question.
Hey, Bobby.
I don't know if you can hear me. Okay.
We can.
Yes,
Okay. All right. So happy Father's Day to both of the gentlemen that spoke and anybody else on the call. I really appreciate, everything that you guys shared. And I've seen Colin recently with the Navajo singing class with the Phoenix Indian Center. So it's really cool to see you on there with your girls. And I think I appreciate Anthony mentioning about, just all those different male figures, not only biological dads, but, anybody that kind of steps into that role. And also your program as well. I work with a mentoring program, and sometimes the parents I work with, they kind of tease about like, they wish they had a big brother or big sister when they were growing up, but I think it's true. And, even as adults, you still need those, those mentors too. So I think that's really cool. And then my question to both of you is just thinking about, I know a lot of the times with everything in our life, sometimes we base our decisions on things that maybe weren't great, that you want to change and do better in the future. And then maybe also things that were really great that you want to continue as you move forward. So I guess for both of you, what is something like from your own experiences with your fathers that you really liked, or, really make an effort to continue with your own kids? And maybe what's something that, maybe wasn't as great that you try to improve and do better with your kids?
Colin?
Sure, I can start off. So thank you for that question, Bobby, and it's good to see you again on this platform. I like your question, and I've been thinking about that, of what was something great that I enjoyed doing with my father. Something that I really enjoy doing with him, it really focused on him teaching me more about our Navajo culture and our history and philosophy and ceremonies. A memory that comes to mind is, would be we would travel back to Shiprock for the Shiprock Fair, the Northern Navajo Agency Fair. And that's one of the oldest fairs within the Navajo Nation. And what makes it so old is that they have the Yabuche dances, our cultural dances. And he would always make it a point to come by the house and pick me up and take me there, and tell me the significance of why they're dancing in a certain way, what's the protocol, and what happens next, and the reasons why. So those are the memories that I really cherish, that I hold dear to my heart, knowing that I can't have those conversations or those interactions with him. So one thing that's something that I really value, and I want to hold on to those memories and share that of what I learned with my daughters, Wayu and Danae, and with my nephews and nieces. So that way we continue to share that cultural knowledge from generation to generation, and to really value family and culture. So that's one area that I really value with my dad. One thing that was challenging, as I mentioned, that my dad, my parents were divorced when I was really young. And so my father was always away working. He wasn't really around on a daily basis. So that provided a structure where I was being raised by my mother. who raised all 5 of us as a single parent, working sometimes 2 jobs or even 3 jobs at one point to really make sure it ends meet. I remember a point where vividly I was walking through our hallway and I glanced out the window and I saw our neighbor who were a little bit younger than I was, and they were playing with their dad. Just that simple fact of throwing the baseball to one another, playing catch. That's a memory that was ingrained into my my being, and that's something that I really affected the way I thought of my interactions with my father, and how I didn't have those daily interactions. I didn't get to play with him on that level as a child. So that's why I made sure that now that I am a father to 2 girls, I make sure I play with them on a daily basis. I'm engaging with them, whether that's playing with their LOL dolls or playing in the pool with them, I just, and then, just coming down and laying on the floor. So I'm interacting with them closely and intimately, and just being, a parent that is listening and playing with them and teaching them when I can. So those are the challenging aspects, and also the precious memories that I have of my father.
Well, for me, the one thing that I really admired and cherished about my father was his strength. Not only physically strong, but back when I was growing up, late 70s, early 80s in Chicago, he moved us out to the suburbs of Chicago, which is predominantly white. And so my father is very pro-Black, and he didn't want me to be limited in vision about where I could move, where I belonged, and just tried to open that space up for me that I shouldn't take somebody's opinion of me at all, really. It shouldn't matter what this neighbor thought of me or what that neighbor thought of me. It matters what I thought of me. And so that's what I really admire about him, is him, talking to me about that strength. And it goes a little bit deeper than that, but that's for another day. I kind of share the same feeling with Colin. Even though my dad was there, we didn't have those moments where he took me to a football game or taught, played catch or anything like that. It wasn't that type of relationship. It was more of education and providing a roof over my head, because he worked a lot. And so he didn't really have that time, because he worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs sometimes, to provide the clothes on my back and the roof over my head and the food on the table. So what I've done with my grandkids, and I wish I'd done it with my niece and nephews a little bit more, is to open the world up to them, kind of expose them to what's available, and also teach them that strength that, they need to have that inner strength within themselves, but not just for themselves, but for their family, and not to be bullies, not to be victims. And I was bullied as a kid, so I, try to instill them that they have a responsibility, even at 7 years old. Look out for your friends. Look out for, don't let somebody pick on your friends, and don't let them pick on you. But that's kind of what I, with the absence of all the other stuff, and ingraining some of what he taught me into the next generations. Thank you for the question.
Yes. Are there other questions out there for our panelists?
Hey, April, can you hear me?
Sure can, Marilyn.
This is Marilyn. I wanted to log in this time because Anthony. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Marilyn.
Such a long time. It's been years and years. And when I saw April's website coming up and you had your PhD, I thought, wow, he has really grown up. So it's so exciting and encouraging to see that you've come this far, Anthony. And I mean, you were already accomplished when we knew you through the chamber. Anthony did a lot of help with us on the chamber. And I don't really know Colin, but Yate. And I'm originally from Tinhorn. So, and we have some relatives up from my nephew's daughter-in-law is from Shiprock area. And then I have some friends up there also. But just to congratulate, you know, I was really excited to see Anthony being on this project, and especially related to fatherhood, you know. And I didn't get a chance to listen to Colin's presentation, but you know, from my perspective of children growing up nowadays, especially, we have a lot of families without, you know, one or the other parent missing, you know, either through divorce or whatever. In my case, it's through divorce. So I was a single parent to my daughter, you know, and so I have to instill in her, I guess, just, you know, my own upbringing. And my own upbringing really comes from tradition, and my dad was very strict on education for us, and he set a lot of examples. And then on the traditional side, my mom was very traditional. She, even though they both worked and all that, they always instilled tradition to us. So we were raised through traditional ceremonies and things like that, even though we all went to school off the reservation. You know, I went to Holbrook, and I lived off the reservation pretty much almost all my years. But I just always admire parents, dads especially, who really take to being there for their children. And I was listening to this one, he is actually a preacher on the radio one day when I was driving back from up north. And he was saying just about the time when, what's that man, that Bin Laden guy got shot and they, you know, finally killed him and all that. He was saying, you know, if I bet anything, this man never was hugged by his father, or his father never even spoke the word "I love you" to him. And if he had done that, and if we do that more to our children, we wouldn't have wars, he said, which is such a big impact. You know, I'm Catholic. I've really gone back to tied the Catholic Church with my traditional upbringing. And today's a really special day. You know, today's the solemnity of Jesus Christ is, you know, today is recognizing what he teaches as love is the biggest, you know, just the expression of love, whether it's to your family or to anybody, actually, to those that you want to help and all that. And so it's really good. I'm really excited about this this type of program. You know, I always enjoy it when young people like Colin and Anthony are bringing about these type of programs to the young people, to young parents, especially, really emphasizing parenting skills, and then also to, my goodness, there's a lot of absent parents that are out there that probably really regret, like you said, not being there for their children. And so veterans and anybody that's not really in tune to the upbringing of their children, to be a part of their lives through programs like this is really exciting. And it's really nice to have, you know, this kind of program going on. I just wanted to congratulate the two of you, the fatherhood you have and the experiences you share. So that's all I have to say. Hey,
Marilyn.
Take care.
I'd like to say
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, please, Brian.
Hi, how y'all doing today? All the way up here from Oklahoma, Fort Silpachi Tribe. I'm a member of the Comanche Nation and Navajo Nation. And unfortunately, that young man right there, Mr. Colin Ben, is my little cousin. And his daddy is my uncle. And his mom, my mom is his dad's sister, older sister. So growing up with Colin, you should have seen him when he was a little guy. He was funny.
Still
But
is.
to see him the way he is now with his kids, I got to visit with him when I went down to Arizona for some training. He invited me over to eat, and I got to eat with his wife and his two daughters, and loved his wife's fry bread. It was pretty awesome. So you know, it was a blessing to see him where he's at. I remember he kept saying, "I'm going to school, Brian. I'm going to school. I'll get there." And now look where he's at. I'm very happy that he's there. He put a lot of hard work in there, and I think he's accomplished me. I'm sure he still got a lot more accomplishment to go. So I'm very glad that he's a good father. But like I said, I work for the ICW program, for the Child Welfare Program here as a caseworker. So one of my deals is that I've been trying to figure out how I can implement something to where I can get back to our fathers that I deal with in child welfare case. You know. Sorry, that's my door. Someone's trying to get in. No, don't come in. But I want to implement that kind of stuff with the training that I want to do, is to trying to get these fathers that are not there and trying to bring them back in and get them involved with their families, you know, because, you know, like you said, the kids got to have, I mean, fortunately, sometimes the kids got to have their father in their life. If mom and dad are not together anymore, but still dad needs to be there. Unfortunately, I married a Navajo girl. I married her because she got good fry bread. She reminds me of my mom's fry bread. So she's Navajo from Window Rock. Like they always say, Comanches used to steal those Navajo girls, so I stole me one. You know, she don't tell her I said that, Colin. Please don't tell her, because she'll get mad at me. So anyway, like I said, I want to bring that kind of program here, and I've been looking for something. There was a training a few years ago in Phoenix that were talking about fatherhood. I don't remember what that training was. It was supposed to have been at Fort McDowell, I think it was.
Fatherhood is sacred.
Yes, and I was wanting to go to that, but I never got to go to that. So I'm hoping that I can find something like that again, to where it can help me as a caseworker. I also work as a family violence coordinator, which I deal with domestic violence all the time. I'm still a police officer part-time. I worked tribal police for 13 years, and I still work as a city police officer. So, excuse me, someone's trying to come in. So just real quick, good job, guys. Anthony, I like your story. That was awesome. I'm glad that's awesome where you took your step in your life. Like everybody says, we get a second chance in life. You know, make the best of it. That's what God gave us. He's always forgiving us. You know, he forgives us for our sins, and he said, you know, you'll do good. And to my cousin Colin, thank you very much for sending me this information. Let me go answer that door, and I'll continue listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. As you're entering the door, there's a resource. You know, as an educator and a researcher, one of the projects I was fortunate to participate on was called RISE, where we research American Indian boys and men within the education pathway. So that is a program where we identified programs and resources specifically for Native boys and men. So Brian, I'll share you the website link to that research report, and within the report we highlighted a few programs. One of them, well, two of them focus on fatherhood. So I think that may help you start to understand what are some programs that have been implemented within Indian country that focus on fatherhood, that you can kind of see if that would be applicable to what you're trying to achieve there with your casework program and training.
Yes, that'd be awesome, because like you said, you know, fathers are still there. So we cannot turn our back on them. You know, sometimes they stray away for some reason, but you know, we just got to help them and their kids to get back together. You know, so Thank you very much for inviting me. I'll continue listening. I'll be quiet now.
So, Colin, if you can send that link to Lisa, just so the participants know, we send a follow-up email after this online gathering, and we can include your link so everyone could have access to that information. Didn't know that was available to us, and I wanted to definitely thank both of our panelists for sharing your stories. I mean, sharing your story is power. It's living sovereignty. It's you never know the power of your story and who needs to hear it, and what it might also plant the seed and what may grow of that. So I just thank you both for your honesty and your willingness to be open. And as a mother, it does my heart good knowing that there's little ones that are benefiting from your love, and bigger little kids benefiting as well. And I also wanted to say, I think it also fits into one of your presentations, as we're talking about raising our children, is that next week we're going to be talking about the birds and bees of cybersecurity. And I think it's very applicable in today's day and age, because we're online, and so are our families. So we're going to be sharing from RJ Husky. He's in his master's program in cybersecurity from George Washington, and we're going to be talking about high level about security and what we can do as heads of our homes to protect ourselves, and also if we are trying to protect our younger ones online as well. So we will be having that discussion next week. You can already register for that. Again, complimentary, and it will be wrapping up our June sessions. As we have shared in I think an episode or two ago, we're going to be changing the frequency of our programming beginning in July. We're going to be once a month starting after July, and it'll be the third Friday of each month. But we hope to have you join us next Friday as we talk about the birds and bees of cybersecurity.